Hi, my name is Dave Werthmann. I'm a member of St. Francis Xavier College Church here, and I'm on the committee for race and reconciliation. And in preparation for November's Black Catholic History Month, we decided this year, rather than looking at historical figures, we wanted to highlight contemporary leaders in the racial movement. And I've got one of them with me right here today, one of our own parishioners, Miss Carlita Logan, who's been in St. Louis most all of her life, and she's one of the people we've selected to interview. So Carlita, tell me about, you grew up here in St. Louis.
I did.
What was it like when you were a child growing up?
It was interesting. I think I was shielded a lot by my parents. They were pretty protective because of my visual impairment and everything. And I went to a diverse grade school, St. Teresa of Avila at that time, which is now, I think, St. Teresa of Bridget. Mm-hmm. And I went there for the first 3 years of my life. And it was a very diverse school. We had kids from all over at that school. So it was, it was a pretty easy childhood, as far as that kind of thing go. And then I transferred to St. Matthew's, which was a total African-American school. And didn't notice the difference for me. I was just a kid. And then I went into junior high at Providence and on Malamphy downtown. We transferred to junior high. And again, it was relatively easy. And then I went to St. Alphonsus Rock High School, where it was back to being a diverse school, transitioning into an African-American school. But when I went there, it was still pretty diverse. And so I wasn't plagued by like a lot of racial issues, and I wasn't overtly conscious of the race issues in St. Louis. I heard talk, but again, I was kind of sheltered from a lot of that stuff. I kind of became more conscious and more aware in high school. Toward the end of my high school year, I transferred to La Brea, and I kind of met some people that made me begin to question that. But it wasn't like a bad experience for me. It wasn't bad. It just was something I became aware of.
Okay. Now you talk about, you mentioned your vision problem. Did teachers or parents were able to provide compensation or support for you in that way?
No. In grade school, there was no Americans with Disability Act or anything like that. But then I didn't get to go to grade school early, like at first kindergarten, because of my vision. In public schools wouldn't take me because they said I couldn't learn, so they didn't want to educate me. So my mom, out of frustration, my mom became Catholic, put us all in Catholic school. We got baptized Catholic. Mm-hmm. And so she converted to her faith, and she was very happy with that decision.
About how old were you at that time?
I was 6 and a half, almost 7, when I got baptized Catholic.
And did the nuns help you to take the extra time to help you with your reading problems or whatever?
No, not really. The only thing they did is they sat me close to them so I could see, but they didn't give me extra attention. They just kind of like was holding my own.
So you kind of had to overcome this on your own.
Yeah, I had to kind of overcome.
And you eventually became a nurse, right?
I did. And I started my nursing at Southeast Missouri State University, and that's where I met racism, head on. I had never been called the N-word. I had never been set apart, but I was the only Black student in my program. At that time.
And where did you work as a nurse?
I started my nursing career at Cardinal Glennon, and again, I had worked every summer as a nurse's aide at Cardinal Glennon. But when I graduated nursing school, we had all been assured a job. But when I graduated nursing school, and again, I was the only Black person, I was denied a position as an RN at Glennon. So I went over to SLU, and I got a job at SLU and worked there.
Now, do you think that was because of your vision problem or because of being Black?
Because of my race.
Okay. So you had, even in Catholic institutions, you experienced
Oh, yeah.
racial discrimination overtly.
Overtly. I remember applying at St. Mary's, new, and there was a group of us. Again, I was the only person of color that they applied. Clearly not the only person of color that they had. And I remember different people would go in, and when I got in, the lady asked me, why didn't I have my bachelor's degree with me? She didn't ask anybody else that. Nobody else got asked the question. So I just thought, boy, it's gonna be a long haul. This is just the beginning,
Was Sister Antona Ebo around in those days?
I didn't meet her if she
Okay,
was.
because that was both St. Mary's and Cardinal Glennon were run by her order.
Right, by Sisters of St. Mary's.
What drew you to join College Church?
Kind of long story. I don't know if I should tell it.
Tell us, give us the Reader's Digest version.
Well, I was a member of Rock Parish, and we had a priest who was there who wasn't very kind, and I chose to avoid him at all costs. So I I left the Rock and I came to College Church, and it was funny because I knew I just needed to sing. That just was it's a part of me. And I went to a Lenten Advent concert, and they sang the song, How Can I Keep From Singing? That was the song I heard that night. And I just remember walking up to the page, the choir director, and saying, can I come and sing with you? And that's really how I
And the rest is history.
The rest is history. But I left College Church and moved to California. I lived in California for almost 30 years.
Oh, wow.
And practiced as a nurse in the Bay Area, and pediatrics in NICU. And then I came back here in 11. Several of my family members passed away. So I came back to be closer to the few that's left. So that I've been back here.
Well, in regard to racial issues, what do you think College Church still needs to work on, or what direction do we need to go?
Wow. I think College Church, I think choosing to be an anti-racist church is incredibly important and tantamount to moving forward. Because, there's a lot about the St. Louis area that people aren't willing to change. They don't want to change. They don't want to give up a lot of old belief systems. And those beliefs, they infiltrate into the church also, because that's, we're a microcosm of society. So I think that that step is an incredible step. I think what we need to continue to do is reach out as a parish, not to evangelize or bring people to our parish, but be a parish that's open enough for people to want to come, not to make race an issue of acceptance, but to make community an issue of acceptance for a community. That's what I think College Church needs to continue to do.
And how would we make our church feel more welcoming to people of color?
I think our bulletin does a good job. Like the articles that are written every week invites an openness, so people recognize that. I think being active in issues like like we're conscious of the voting rights issue, and there are people work at the border now studying that whole issue. I think if we just make the parishes around us aware of our activities, and maybe other people will want to become more involved, make it a worthwhile issue without feeling like we're out to convert people, but to educate people. I love our birth certificate and ID program, because that's such a cool outreach program, and that program makes a difference in people's lives. It allows people to get housing, get jobs, to get the help that they need. So I think as we continue to do those programs, I think that's a way that we can bring people, because I think when people, like for the outreach program, people of color come in and they feel welcome. Sometimes they want to come back. They want to come back to our church. They want to participate in our community. And I think that's the way we do it, a step at a time, in different programs. And I think as a parish, being willing to tell our stories to other people, be proud of our parish. I'm proud of our parish. I've had people say to me, you need to come join our church. And I'm like, about coming to mine. My church is awesome. So yeah, I think a sense of pride about belonging to this parish is really important. And I think that goes out.
With your involvement, and not only at our parish, but at the archdiocesan level and at the city level, we really kind of look to you as one of the leaders in anti-racism movement. What gives you the strength and courage to continue in that work?
I think for me, what gives me the strength, one, is my faith, but also I've been blessed enough to meet enough good people in my life of multi-races than I've met bad. I know I can get depressed and think there's a lot of really bad people in the world. And I've seen over the last few years how we've sunk very low in so many ways as a nation, so many levels. But I've been blessed to meet good people, to have known and chosen good people in my life who are people that are white, Hispanic, or Asian. And so I think what gives me my strength is knowing that, we only look different from the outside because we all bleed the same color blood. Our hearts all beat the same way. And so that's what I rely on. I rely on our likeness more than I do our differences. And that really gives me strength, because I remind myself all the time that there's just not a lot of distance between us as human beings, as children of God. And it's hard sometimes to look at people and see God. I don't always do that, but I try to remind myself as often as I can that God's love for them is as great as God's love for me. So I kind of fall back on that.
That's beautiful. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for participating in this interview series. I'm sure that our people will enjoy it and be inspired by it. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.